Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
So good morning, and thank you for being here. First of all, I'm Rabbi David Englander, Congregation Bethel, and together with our Chazan Pomerantz Borough, it is a distinct yet sad honor to be able to facilitate and officiate these services today. Jewish funeral ultimately is about a single word, which is kavod, which translates best to honor, and we are here to honor a life that was extremely well and beautifully lived, and a legacy that will continue to reverberate. As always, your Bethel family stands with you, as you have stood with your Bethel family, Rick and Donna, and to Jack and to Nomi. I know, thinking of Barbara today, and to the grandchildren, rest of the family. We know that there is much to honor about Millie's life, and you will hear from those who knew her best, loved her the most, over the course of our special service this morning, as you do all you can to continue to honor her life and also her legacy. I want to start with just a psalm that describes what it means to live a good life, and hearing this description, you will be reminded of some aspects of your beloved mother's extraordinary life. And today is indeed about allowing those memories to really take hold. These are part of the precious gift of legacy and lasting love that remain with you today and every day you call her to mind. Mizmor LeDavid Rami Yogabor Alecha Mi Yishkon Bahar Kadshecha Holech Tamim Ufod Tzedek V'dover Emet Biovavo L'Ragala L'Shono L'Asaler Eo Ra'av V'Cherpa Lo Nasal Krovo Nivze Beinav Nimas Vet Yirad Anecha Beid Nishba L'Harav L'Yamir Kaspo Lonatan beneshech v'shochad on akilo lakach ose'ela lo imot leolam. Psalm of David, do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor, spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Practice all of your business fairly, accept no bribe against the innocent, make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. Our Chazan will be facilitating the rest of the service, as she always is. Therefore, Forman family, therefore all of our families, I returned from being out of town just yesterday late afternoon, and I know that she is, as she always is, a source of extraordinary comfort and support to you and to all of us.
Thank you, Rabbi Englander, for being here. I know how much it means to all of us. Shamayim va'aretz ezri Ose shamayim va'aretz. I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? The source of my help is God, creator of heaven and earth. God will preserve your soul. God will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forevermore. These words from Psalm 121 can be reduced to one word: help. We need help. Some of us from God, and all of us from one another. We are here to celebrate the life of Mildred Forman, Millie from Philly, to celebrate her life, to honor her memory, and to hold one another up. If only there were sufficient words to bring comfort to all of you, Millie's beautiful family. We will try today. We will pray for comfort for our shattered hearts. But we are fully aware that there are not words. Not really. So we turn to one another in love. We turn to one another when we feel we cannot support ourselves, and when we see that someone else needs to be held up. We turn to one another when we need to cry, or when we want to tell a funny story. We turn to one another when we don't think we can even breathe, when we need something or someone to hold. Your mom, your bubby, was born on September 21st, 1927, and let the record show it wasn't 1928. The only child born to Joseph and Sonia. Her parents had come from Romania in search of a better life in America. And when I asked you how your parents met and fell in love, you told me that both of your parents were wedding crashers. Well, your dad was devastatingly handsome, and your mom couldn't resist a man in uniform. After all, having served in our country in World War II, he was a hero. And she was stunningly beautiful, and so shortly thereafter, on June 14th, they were married in 1947. Jack, you told me that she was a good mom, and you have fond memories of your weekly visits on Sundays to your grandparents. A typical housewife of her day, she volunteered at your elementary school, and she helped your dad with the books at his factory. She was fiercely independent. She was a trendsetter. She was a fashionista, getting her hair done every week and sometimes in more than one color at the same time. And Rick, you described your mom as a seeker, part of the magical post-war generation. She took cooking lessons. She made the best Swedish meatballs. And when she started painting lessons, she wanted to be known as Malay. While she was definitely a direct, straight shooter with her opinions, and she had many, you always knew how much she loved all of you. Barbara, Jack, and Naomi, and Rick, and Donna. Donna, your family is so grateful for all of the love and care that you provided to your mother-in-law, just as you are grateful for the softer, loving years you shared together. To say that she loved her grandchildren, Lindsay and Danny, Carly and Elijah, Sydney, Joshua, Ryan, Zev, and Abby would be an understatement. Abby, when we spoke yesterday, you shared wonderful memories about your visits to Florida and to the flea markets, but your greatest joy was watching your bubby with her great-grandchildren. And yes, it is sad to watch your family lose that generation. Her great-grandchildren, Eli, Amalé, Betty, Remy, Yossi, Solly, Addison, Parker, Millie, and Bailey, and those still to come, no pressure. They will know her from the stories you will continue to share. Lindsay, you remember going to Barson's in Ellingsburg Circle and hanging out at your bubby's house. She was so fashionable with her big necklaces and meticulous stylings. She could be intimidating, but a compliment from her meant everything. And Carly, you told me that your bubby cracked you up. You admired her honesty and strong will, and you loved to talk politics. And one of your favorite memories will always be her animated laugh. The last one you heard was about Archie. After I left your home yesterday, I went to the files at Bethel and was searching through all of your bat mitzvah cards to look for Mom's Jewish name. And I even found your card, Rick, from your bar mitzvah. I'm not going to say what year it was. I couldn't find her Jewish name because back then we only used the dad's name, your Joseph, Yosef. But on Sydney's card, I found something really special that I wanted to share. These words were written on her card. It said, "Sid looks up in the sky when she knows Bubby is coming from Florida." Pretty special. Your Bubby, your mom, was an incredible woman. She aspired and achieved American values and looks. You could call her thoroughly modern Millie. She wouldn't dream of being seen without a full face of makeup, even if there was a fire alarm. And even more admirable, she stepped up and did everything in her power when it was necessary, what you might call survivor mode. I know you all have so many fond memories of your mom and your bubby, and we will hear from several family members in a few moments. Millie was blessed to be very young and vibrant well into her 80s. Although she suffered from polio as a child, which compromised her left arm, you would never know it. The only time it showed was when she would drive up to the toll booth and she had to use her right arm back in the day to unroll the window to pay the toll. She looked amazing and she felt great until about 6 years ago when her health began to decline and she moved back up here into Lionsgate. Sadly, as her glaucoma got worse and she lost her eyesight, life became more difficult for her. And about a year ago, when she fell and broke her hip, she was no longer able to live independently. Her health declined rapidly, and her body began to shut down. This fiercely independent, beautiful woman was no longer able to fight the fight. Fortunately, she was able to feel the love from all of her family members, including a call from Barbara from Florida. It was a blessing when she passed peacefully on Wednesday, as she is no longer suffering. So we pray for comfort and strength for all of you. May you always feel loved and continue to share that love for many years to come. We pray that Millie's memory will continue to inspire you to appreciate the small things and to live life to the fullest. We pray that the soul of Miriam Bat Yosef Sonia will remain as a source of strength and love. May she rest in peace. And please say with me, Amen. We will now hear from members of her family to share their personal reflections, starting with Jack.
Good morning. It's hard to try and summarize a life into a 3-minute talk. People are complicated. ever-changing, as life throws multiple curves at you through the years. In the case of my mom, Mildred Forman, she grew up during the Depression, lived in Strawberry Mansion section of Philadelphia. Her parents, Joseph and Sonia Gore, were a hardworking immigrant family that had a manufacturing business making aprons and dresses, and it was called J&S Gore. After the war, Mom met and married my father, Joe Forman. My dad joined the family business, eventually taking over the business from my Zadie. Mom and Dad first had a baby girl, Barbara, and 3 years later, a wonderful baby boy. That's me. When I was 4, we moved to Pennsauken, New Jersey. I never knew why we moved away from the aunts and uncles and grandparents of Strawberry Mansion, but they all moved too, to Oxford Circle, section of Philadelphia. Early years in New Jersey are my first real memories of my parents. We were a happy family. Mom was by no means a helicopter mom. During the summer, I would leave the house in the morning with instructions to be home for dinner when the 5 o'clock fire alarm would go off. In between those hours, she didn't really think about where I was. 9 years later, child number 3 arrived, and that would be Rick. Barbara and I now had a job around the house. Watch Rick. Mom would get her hair done weekly, and every week it was different. Sometimes she had dark hair, sometimes red, sometimes blonde, and teased a foot high. I thought it was funny, but didn't think all that much about it. Every Sunday, we would make the family trip back to Philadelphia to visit the grandparents. Both my mom's parents and dad's mother lived in Oxford Circle, and we would go to Horn and Hardard's cafeteria restaurant every week. The business was now called Style Made, and Mom did the payroll, and when I got old enough to drive, I did the local deliveries and clean the factory on Saturdays. We moved to a bigger house in Cherry Hill, and life was good. Good until Asian imports destroyed the textile industry in Philadelphia, and almost every small manufacturer in the area closed, including Style Made. At this point, only Rick was home. Barbara and I got married and started our own lives. They tried several businesses and then worked at Forman Mills and finally retired, spending a lot of the year in Florida. When my dad got sick, Mom became a caregiver and did that for several years, taking good care of him. When my dad passed, Mom started a new life. She moved to Florida, started dating, and even had work done. One boyfriend, she looked kind of Asian after that for a while. One boyfriend was told by my mom she was 10 years younger than she really was. She moved back here to New Jersey several years ago and lived at Lionsgate. She watched MSNBC all day long, cheering Obama and booing Trump for years, and arguing with her son. She had a good life and will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. We'll call on Abby and Nomi.
When I was a little girl, people would say I looked like a Forman. Whether that was true or not, I always would look at my bubby and feel pride in this statement. Dressed to the tens always, makeup and hair to match, she was stunning. As a child, I would go to Florida to spend time with my bubby and Pop-Up. We would spend the week visiting seedy flea markets, rummaging for great finds. My love for shopping and a good sale rack definitely is a dominant genetic Forman trait that I find much pride in and I'm sure has been passed down to Remy and Eli. I will always remember my bubby's face lighting up as she seemed like a true savant in the flea market field, which also seemed to be a genetic gift she passed down to her son. A memory of my bubby that will always stay with me was at my bat mitzvah over 25 years ago. I had asked my Pop-Up to dance with me. He was not feeling well and wasn't sure he could. My bubby swooped in and said she would love to. The love and pride that I felt at that moment to dance with my bubby is one I will forever hold close. When Bubby moved back to New Jersey, I got the opportunity to visit Lion Gates, and my kids got the chance to spend time with her big Bubby, as they called her. Watching many of the TVs and eating the candy bowl on her table was always a highlight. Having her at the holidays was special. As the years go on, our table keeps getting smaller and smaller, but the memories will last forever. Watching my mom, my dad, my Aunt Donna, my Uncle Rick, and Aunt Barbara care for Bubby over the years has truly been beautiful. Formans love a great discount, but they do not discount their love and admiration and respect. I'm so proud to be part of this family that will remember Bubby and keep her memories alive forever as she is reunited with her true love, Pop-Up. Bubby, we love and we'll miss you.
This is from our nephew, Ryan, who lives in California and was unable to come. To my Bubby, who unapologetically lived her life to the fullest. As a child, you were kind and enigma to me. Yeah.
Grandma Esther was gushy, Pop-Up Joe was doting, and Perry was Archie Bunker, but you were unlike anyone else I've ever known. You were a pioneer in the I don't care what other thinks movement, and yet you cared immensely about how you presented yourself to the world. You liked spending time with your grandchildren, but that might mean accompanying you to Forman Mills, the mall, or a table at Barson's with your friends. You didn't watch cartoons with me, you watched the Golden Girls and C-SPAN. You quietly and dotedly loved Pop-Up until his final breath, but you weren't going to spend the rest of your life in mourning either. It should be noted, if it hasn't been already, that you and Pop-Up were the original wedding crashers. That's how you met, and that's how I like to mentally memorialize your bond. But what made you so special to me was the second act of your life as a solo artist, when you transformed from Mildred Forman of the duet Bubby and Pop-Up to Millie from Philly. For almost 25 years, you lived and loved, and you didn't look back, at least not in my purview. Your looks changed, your snarky side shined, and you had no regards for what the kids these days called FOMO. You inspired me, unknowingly, probably because you were busy living your life and weren't really into gushy conversations, but you did. You inspired me to live and love and go after the things I want in life to the beat of my own drum. When I was set to become a father, I knew I wanted to name our girl after you, without actually knowing what your name even meant. It fittingly means quiet strength, by the way. And I also predictably knew that your response would be something along the lines of, "Why'd you do that? I hate my name," which it was. But just like you, I've got my own streak of unapologetically doing what I want now. Within reason, it's partially your fault. You'll always be Millie from Philly to me, a one-of-a-kind Bubby and dearly missed. But I'd like to think the world a better place with more Millies inspired by you. I love you always, Ryan. Oh, that's so kind.
Rick.
Good morning. It's a hard act to follow now, so a lot's been said that I basically had the same thing because we all remember Millie the same way, I think. So I'll just do that real quick about the history. Maybe there's some things in there that are a little different. But Millie, again, it's really a celebration of life. First of all, she was going to be 96 in September. Most of her life, she was very healthy, thank God, and didn't have a lot of things going on that were negative. And we were looking forward to her 96th birthday. But it's really a blessing. And when I look back at, really like the last century, that it's everybody in the room can almost associate with that there was so much magic in those years, right? I mean, you had right after World War I, her parents moved from Romania into the Philadelphia area. I think they met on the boat, or they met, right before. And her 5 siblings of my grandmother, Sonia, lived like a block away. In those days, everybody lived around the corner. And I remember every Sunday night when I was a little kid, they'd watch the Ed Sullivan Show and have the big fruit on the table and the iced tea. And it was just like a magical time in that respect. Nobody really drove back then, on the women's side especially. I remember my grandmother would call the car the machine. Like, we got to get into the machine, And even my mom, I don't think she drove until she was like maybe 32 years old or somewhere in that range. So it was a different era that we're talking about, and so historical and so nice when you really think about it, of that 100-year period, basically, after the Depression. So my grandfather, Millie was an only child, and she was born and raised in Philadelphia, as we just said. And my grandfather was a hustler, right? He was the entrepreneur of the family, Joseph Gore, basically. And he never worked for anybody. I think his family was tailors back in Romania. And he was a guy that during the Depression would go door to door and have those installment businesses, where you pay 3 weeks later and the interest rate and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that was like the Jewish mafia. No, I don't think so. It was all kosher and everything. But that entrepreneurship really started there. And about, as he started growing the business, and he was selling aprons and cobblers and house coats back then, that was a big thing, all of the sisters would work for him. So they were all sewing in their houses. And then eventually he opened up a place at A in Allegheny in Philadelphia. And my dad eventually joined him. And I remember the whole family, my brother was heavily involved in that business back then, but it was called the shop. We would go to A in Allegheny, and my dad was bragging, like in the 60s. And like Jack said, once the imports came in, that really wiped out a lot of the businesses. And, my dad was doing pretty good back then. It was a sort of like the Ozzie and Harriet type of mentality. You came from the city, then you moved into the suburbs, and he had the GI Bill, and he got a nice little house in Pennsauken, New Jersey, and it was sort of magical. And at some point, like Jack and Barbara were out of the house, and at that point, and business started to get bad because of the imports. My dad couldn't pivot fast enough. It's like that book, Outliers, where you're at a certain age, and you're not going to all of a sudden go to China and start to import merchandise. So at that point, things were bad, but my dad, I remember, he would never go bankrupt, or he would never think about not paying the bills and things like that. And my mom, this is what I really remember about Mildred, is that she basically had the fortitude, like, to say, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do odd jobs. I'm going to take typing lessons. I'm going to help the family out. And that's what I saw, basically. We had to sell our house in Cherry Hill, and then we moved to Pennsylvania to an apartment, and my dad got a fabric store or something. But the biggest lesson of that was, like, Millie and my dad were just, they would just keep plowing ahead. Like anybody else has certain financial problems or whatever, but you would never know it. And Millie would wake up 5 o'clock in the morning with my dad. They'd go to the flea markets. They'd start to hustle out there and always made it. We didn't really notice that they really missed anything. A couple quick things. I know I have to get off here, but I remember as a kid, that fashionista side of Millie, that was that seeker that we were talking about. She was always looking. I would say that if everything was in black and white in the 50s, it's like that Pleasantville, Millie was in color, you know, and basically she was always seeking, like saying that, well, I need to learn how to paint. I learned, you know, and we talk about her hair. One day she came home and her front hair was black and the back was like bright red. It was one of the, and the short. And we were going down to Florida, and I'm driving through Georgia with my dad, and embarrassed bringing her into the restaurants. You know, it's like, oh my God, everybody's staring. And we're out of Yankee country back then. It was like these biscuit places, you know, down south. And then also I would get like green spaghetti. Like I didn't know there was anything about spinach or anything. She was taking, you know, lessons on cooking and everything. It's like, so she was, and then painting, Malay and everything. So she was a real seeker, always looking to do different things. But that's really what I remember the most about Millie, that fortitude, that keep on, you know, keep on ticking, even though you take a licking type of thing. And it's a good lesson. And again, that whole century, that whole period of time that we're all part of, I hope we don't lose that. By the way, my brother was talking about politics for a second, which I was never going to bring up. No. But Millie in the beginning, I don't know if she was brainwashed, but she would imitate Trump. We have pictures of, and she liked him in the home in Florida, and everybody in the place was like, "Oh my God, how could you like that guy?" And basically, she was converted though. She became very liberal. Take care.
Thank you for that. I love that no politics rule. Thank you. It's clear that you inherited traits from both of your parents, and it's a beautiful legacy, and I know that has been given to all of the grandchildren and great grandchildren to be as well. Finally, we'll hear from Donna. Carly and Lindsay coming up with Mom.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming today to support our family and sharing the love of our Millie, better known as Millie from Philly. And for you that don't know the true story, when Millie relocated after my father-in-law passed away 25 years ago to Florida, she was trying to get back in the dating scene, and she had business cards made up. And she would go to different groups and organizations, and she would hand out her business card, and it would say Millie from Philly. So that just became, how we all, you know, used to call Millie as life, you know, went on. I also want to take this opportunity, as I look out here today, to thank all the amazing caregivers that have been there to take such good care of Millie in the last few years. Our family will be eternally grateful to each and every one of you for showing her the love and respect that she so truly deserved. I remember the first time I met Millie when Rick and I started dating. We hit it off immediately. I always respected and admired her style and fashion sense. Millie was a straight shooter and didn't hold it back anything, saying exactly what she felt, regardless of how it came out. Okay, thank you, Carly. This is why I bring them along, they're my eyes. You always hear those dreaded mother-in-law stories, but I never felt that with Millie. In fact, I felt like I gained another mom. People often thought that I was her daughter because, okay, thank you, Lindsay, because much like Millie, I always like to be put together with my makeup and hair done and never seen without it on. But Millie was always a role model and inspiration to me in so many ways. We had a very special relationship and bond, and I consider myself so blessed and fortunate that in the last 6 years since we moved her back from Florida, I got to spend so much quality time with her. Those years were a true gift and bonus to us all. Millie, we will all miss you beyond words, and there will be a void in our world without you. We hope that you are reconnecting with Dad and eating hot dogs with my dad, Irv. And who knows, maybe even passing out your business cards up there, Millie from Philly. Rest in peace, beautiful Millie. You will always be in our heart. We love you.
Following our service this morning, interment will take place at Crescent Memorial Park. And following burial, everyone is invited back to Rick and Donna's home to comfort the family and share a happy story. 1141 Winding Drive in Cherry Hill. And on Sunday, Jack and Nomi will welcome visitors from 1 to 9 p.m. with a Shiva service at 7:30 p.m. I ask you to please rise in body or spirit for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim, shochen b'meromim, hametzei menucha nechona tachak kanefei hashechina, b'malot kedoshim utehorim, Kezor rakiam hazehirim et nishmat Miriam bat Yosef v'Sonia shehalecha le'olama began Eden menuchata Ana bal harachamim, hastireh beseter knafecha leolamim, utzror bitzror chaim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom hamishkava, Venomar, Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure. To the soul of Mildred Forman, daughter of Joseph and Sonia, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. Now we say, Amen. I'm going to invite you to be seated for another couple of moments.